In 2014, Joko Widodo, commonly known as Jokowi, became Indonesia's seventh president. Over the past decade, his administration has shaped the country through ambitious infrastructure projects, social welfare programs, and governance reforms. As his presidency nears its end in 2024, we reflect on the key achievements, challenges, and legacy he leaves behind. Jokowi's leadership was shaped by his Nawacita, a 9-point agenda focused on restoring the state's role, boosting economic self-reliance, and improving welfare and governance. His vision called for infrastructure development, reducing corruption, and bringing development to Indonesia's periphery regions. Jokowi's presidency is perhaps best defined by his massive push for infrastructure development. Between 2015 and 2020, Indonesia saw over 3,400 kilometers of national roads and 1,298 kilometers of toll roads constructed. This period also brought 29 new airports and more than 100 revitalized seaports, significantly improving connectivity and economic growth in underdeveloped regions like Papua and Sulawesi. Indonesia experienced steady GDP growth under Jokowi, averaging around 5% before the pandemic. The COVID-19 crisis caused a brief contraction in 2020, but the economy rebounded with 5.31% growth in 2022. Jokowi's focus on infrastructure, combined with policies aimed at attracting foreign investment, helped stabilize the economy. Compared to the previous administration of President Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono, Jokowi faced tougher global conditions, but managed to keep inflation stable and increase foreign direct investment, reaching $29.7 billion in 2022. One of Jokowi's major goals was reducing poverty and improving welfare for the Indonesian people. Through programs like the Indonesia Smart Card (KIP) and Indonesia Healthy Card (KIS), millions gained access to education and healthcare. By 2022, over 80% of the population was covered by the BPJS healthcare system, marking a significant increase from 45% coverage before his term. Poverty rates dropped from 11.2% in 2014 to 9.54% in 2022, lifting millions out of poverty. However, challenges remain in ensuring equal access to these services across Indonesia's diverse regions. Education reform was central to Jokowi's agenda. His administration expanded vocational training, aligning the workforce with the demands of the digital economy. Programs like the Indonesia Smart Card made schooling more accessible, and by 2022, significant progress had been made in reducing dropout rates. However, while more students gained access to education, critics argue that the quality of education remains uneven, and rural areas still lag behind urban centers in terms of resources and infrastructure. Environmental sustainability has been a critical issue for Jokowi's administration. Despite efforts to reduce deforestation and expand renewable energy projects, Indonesia remains one of the largest emitters of greenhouse gases due to reliance on coal and deforestation for palm oil plantations. Deforestation rates were cut by over half from previous levels, but environmentalists remain concerned about the slow pace of renewable energy development and Indonesia's continuing reliance on coal. Governance and anti-corruption were major focal points for Jokowi's Nawacita. His administration improved government efficiency through digitalization and transparency initiatives. However, in his second term, the weakening of the Corruption Eradication Commission, KPK, led to widespread criticism. Public perception of the government's anti-corruption efforts took a hit following legislative reforms in 2019 that many saw as weakening the fight against corruption. This remains a key challenge for Jokowi's legacy. Jokowi aimed to position Indonesia as a global maritime hub, but this vision has only been partially realized. While there have been improvements in port infrastructure, the country still struggles to fully capitalize on its maritime potential. Efforts to achieve economic self-reliance, particularly in agriculture and fisheries, made progress but face setbacks. Indonesia remains reliant on imports for key commodities like rice and fuel. Jokowi's administration also faced criticism for its handling of human rights issues. The passage of controversial laws like the Omnibus Law and the revised Criminal Code sparked protests over labor rights and freedom of expression. Compared to his predecessor, President Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono, Jokowi's administration saw greater progress in infrastructure and poverty reduction. However, SBY's era had slightly higher GDP growth rates and more stable governance reforms. The contrast highlights Jokowi's focus on building for the future, but also reveals areas that still need improvement. As Jokowi's term comes to an end, future leaders can learn from both his successes and challenges. A key takeaway is the need to balance economic growth with environmental sustainability and governance reforms. To continue Indonesia's progress, future administrations must focus on inclusive economic policies, strengthen anti-corruption efforts, and accelerate the transition to renewable energy. This will ensure that Indonesia not only grows but thrives in the years to come. President Jokowi will be remembered for his transformational infrastructure projects, efforts to reduce poverty, and his down-to-earth leadership style. While his presidency has seen significant achievements, the next generation of leaders must continue to address the gaps and build a more equitable, prosperous, and sustainable Indonesia.